Alright folks, picking off where we left off, we are dealing with dividing 1 over 3 by 1 over 6. Now, like I said before, you can use your TI calculator to do this, but make sure that when you do, that you use parentheses. You're also going to have to use the math frac button. So first off, we're just going to set up our two fractions. We got 1 over 3 divided by 1 over 6. Oop, forgot to put parentheses there. Let me put those on. Now, once we do this, this is actually going to give us a decimal. Oh, actually it did it. This actually ended up giving us 2. Reason being that this one flips over and then we multiply, so this gives us 6 over 3, which gives us 2. So our actual answer here is 2. Alrighty. Now up top, we got actual equations involving fractions. These are a little difficult, and I understand if you have problems with them. You're probably going to need a piece of paper so you can write these things out. So let's take a look. First off, if you got any parentheses, get rid of those by using the distributive property. If there's no fractions, combine like terms. If you have any denominators or decimals, you need to multiply each side of the equation by the common denominator, or make that denominator into a decimal and just leave it as a coefficient and do the math like you would normally. Now once you combine like terms, you shouldn't have anything that is more complicated than what we have here, 4x minus 8. Now for any signs that we got, any addition or subtraction, we use the addition or the subtraction property of equality like we were doing before, so that we keep each side equal, and then we keep that to where we got the variables on one side and we got any constants on the other side. And then we get rid of any coefficients by dividing each side by the same number. So at the end, we should have something like a number equaling whatever our variable is. So then here we got a couple questions here that we're going to do the math between. Some of them are simple, like number 1, we just need to get rid of this 4 here. Some of them are a little more, difficult by having coefficients or constants and coefficients to deal with, or parentheses in these cases down here. So what we're going to do, we're going to deal with one easy one with just addition and subtraction. I'm going to do one with multiplication with the fractions, and I'm going to do a harder one down here. Okay? And I'm going to pull up my whiteboard on my end so that I can go through and do those. So once that loads, we'll deal with that. All right, first things first. We're doing m plus 4 equals 13 over 2. What I need to do is I need to get this 4 to the other side by subtracting. So that means that I'm going to just go over here. And we're going to just write that in there, okay? So I got up here m plus 4 equals 13 over 2. Let's make sure that that's correct. Yep, okay. To get rid of this 4, we got to subtract 4 from both sides. So we got over here, we're going to be subtracting 13 over 2 by 4. So this will be just m, and it's equal to whatever we get from taking 13 over 2 minus 4. Now, since 4 is a whole number, what we're going to do, we're going to turn that into a fraction over 1, so we can do the math between it. You could also turn 13 over 2 into a decimal and do the math between these like that. So I'm just going to do it like this. And we're going to go through. We got to make these both have like denominators. So underneath, we're going to make sure that we got a 2. So we got to make this turn into a 2. So that means that when we multiply this side, we got to do this by a 2 over another 2, which gives us an 8 over 2. And over here we got 13 over 2. Now, 13 minus 8 gives us a 5 over 2. Now, can you turn this into a mixed number? Sure, but I don't really need to go too hard in the paint with that unless I'm telling you. So this first one, m equals 5 over 2. So quite a little bit of work there. Alternatively, you could do the math by just going over here and doing, within parentheses, 13 divided by 2. And then you could do minus 4, which gives you 2.5. And if you hit the math button and use the fraction answer, that gives you 5 over 2. So, easy ways for you to do it. All right, so this first one, we got m equals 5 over 2. All right, that's the easier one. Now let's take a look at one involving multiplication like this, okay? So what we have here, we have 2 over 3x equals negative 1. We need to go through and do the opposite of what's happening with this. So we are multiplying by 2 and dividing by 3. So we have to deal with the top part and the bottom part respectively. So the opposite of dividing by 3 is multiplying by it. The opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by it. So let me bring up myself over here. When you see a fraction like that, you got to go through and deal with it. Is that a 1? Yep, a negative 1. To get rid of this, it's similar to what we would do when we were doing the opposite and it was just like one little coefficient. We would have to do the opposite of what's happening with this fraction. So the opposite of us having the 3 on the bottom is having it up in the top. Let me go and just scroll over a little bit. Yeah, okay. So we have 3 up top, 2 in the bottom. And then since we're doing that over here, we got to do the same thing over here. 3 up top, 2 in the bottom. So over here, this 2 and this 2 and this 3 and this 3 cancel out because we're doing the opposite of what's there. So we got x by itself over here. On the other side, I got negative 1 times 3 over 2. Now I know since this is just 1 and that's 3 over 2, I'll still have 3 over 2 as an answer. And since this is negative and that's positive, that 3 over 2 will be a negative. So pretty quick, pretty, simple. But it's just going to take a little bit of practice to get used to it. So when we rewrite our answer, it is x equals negative 3 divided by 2. Alrighty, now for this one right here, there's 2 ways you can go about doing this. You can go through and keep everything as a fraction, or you can turn everything into a decimal and do the math like that. Personally, for me, I'd rather turn these all into decimals and do the math that way. You're not always going to see equations like this, but you might see them from time to time, depending on what test you might take. So I'm just going to go through. Let me rewrite. Oh my God, actually, I could copy that quickly. And let's copy that. And we're going to paste that right over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn this all into decimals, because that I feel might be a little easier for us. Now let me see if that'll actually work out or not. So in this case, since I'm seeing this already, I'm just going to leave these as fractions. That's my bad. All right. First thing we got to do, we're going to go through and treat these all like we would normally. We're going to take this 5 over 3, and we're going to distribute that inside of this parenthesis. It is complicated, I understand. So this gives me negative 5 over 3. So negative 5 over 3 in front of our x, plus, now I'll multiply 5 times 1. Actually, this is minus now. So minus 5 times 1 is 5. 3 times 3 is 9. So that's over there. Over here, we got the same exact thing. We got 29 over 18 plus 1 over 2x. So I want to bring all my x's to one side. I want to bring all my constants to the other. So I'm going to bring my smaller x over here by subtracting 1/2 x from both sides. All right. So that's going to be coming over here. On the other hand, what I'm going to do, and I'm going to rewrite this a little smaller just so we can do it. I'm going to bring over this 5/9 to the other side by adding it. Now, typically this would be me writing these in two different steps. I'm doing this just because I'd rather have all the variables over here and rewrite it that way, and have all the constants over here and rewrite it that way. So we got over here 29 over 18 plus 5 over 9. And that is equal to, over here we have 5 over thirds, so negative 5/3 x minus negative half x. All right. So we got everything on one side, everything on the other side. So in order for us to do the math between these, we could actually go through and use our calculator and simplify this. So in parentheses, I'm going to do 29 plus 18. Not plus 18. 25 divided by 18. My fault. So that's my first fraction, and that's plus my second fraction, 5 divided by 9. Now when I do that, I get my decimal, and what I'm going to hit is the math button and the fraction key. This will make it so it'll turn it into a fraction for us, make it a little less for us to deal with. So when I do all the math here, this plus this actually gives me 13 over 6, I believe that was. 13 over 6, yep. 6. There we go. All right. Now on the other hand, I got negative 5 over 3 and negative 2. So let's go through and do that quickly. So I got in parentheses negative 5 over 3 minus 1 over 2. And then when I hit the math on that, I get negative 13 over 6. So negative 13 over 6x. Okay, now I know that this and this, they both look the same. So that means that when I go through and do the math, I need to get rid of this coefficient. Now the opposite of this coefficient is me having 6 over negative 13. And if I do the math over here, it has to be the same way. So 6 over negative 13. So if I'm multiplying these two fractions together, I know that 6 and 13 over here and 13 and 13 over here, these guys both cancel out, leaving me with just x. If I do the same thing over here, I get the same thing on top as I do on the bottom. Sorry, this is supposed to be a 13, not a 3. Well, now it looks like a B. There you go. So if I do the math between these, this and this cancel out, and this will cancel out, but leaving that negative symbol over, and this will be a 1. So this one actually gives us x equals negative 1. Was that a lot? Oh yeah, it was. Am I going to give you that often? Oh no. So let's just put that little answer right on in there. Negative 1 equals x. That was a lot. I'm sorry, y'all. So I will see you in class, and I will put up the last video for this section and this section later on today, guys.